passionate about. So I'm really excited to share some of the ways that I've engaged with clients. So this includes writing, drawing, art, or other approaches. So first I'll show you how these approaches tie into social work theory, talk about the benefits of writing, and I'll explain some of the exercises and show you examples of clients' drawings. I have their permission, by the way, and I thank them for their courage and their generosity. You'll be able to leave with exercises that you can use right away with your clients and also for yourself. And there'll be a time for question at the end, so if you have any, write them down. If they're really, really burning, and feel free to put up your hand. I'm kind of flexible that way. Okay, so we'll start with writing. This is just a little slide to explain how I came to have an interest in therapeutic writing and develop a specialty in it. So I was trained before I started social work, I was trained in something called the living journal process, which is based on the work of Ira Progoff, who was a big journal writing guru in the 70s. So I did training with that, and then I offered workshops in the community between 1995 and 2005. So, which included, church ladies and other groups. In 2008, I started to think about integrating social work theory with the principles I had learned in the living journal process. And that's when I developed the manual for professionals. And then based on that manual, I started offering training in 2012 and continue to do so. And I've also adapted, the focus in the beginning was on doing groups, writing groups. I've adapted and I use it often with individuals now. And that's kind of mostly what the focus is today. So I use everything I talk about with clients. And with myself. Okay, so. Okay, how to explain to your boss or agency that you need markers. So if you need to justify what you're doing in clinical terms, there's various approaches you can use when you ask your clients to write or draw. So if you need to write a report or need to write an assessment or whatever, and need to say what you're doing, you can talk about using an ecosystemic or structural approach, which, you're asking your clients to draw a genogram, that kind of stuff. There's also another thing that I won't get into today called the MOS, where they look at different influences in their lives. Solution focused, where you're looking at questions, goals, working on the immediate. Narrative therapy. So there's often storytelling that accompanies this, writing for themselves. And I'll come back to the narrative approach later. Jung and Freud, when we look at dreams, those sorts of things, tapping into the unconscious. Always strength-based. And Gestalt, which I'll come to that in a minute and how that ties in. All right. So the benefits of writing. So when individuals write, they get a chance to reread and see their situation differently, and perhaps process it verbally before expressing it. Writing also is great if individuals have a hard time expressing themselves, or if their first language is different than that of their therapist. They can write in their own language. Writing creates a buffer when they try to express something difficult or painful. It can be hard to speak directly to a therapist at times. I don't know if any of you have ever noticed that. Which is why some clients say difficult things to my dog rather than to me, because I bring my dog to work. So they'll often, they have something to say, and then they'll say, and Stella, I think I'm gonna get a divorce, So having a buffer is always good. So in this slide, I talk about some of the main benefits. So writing helps people make sense of their feelings. because they get to sort them, analyze what's going on, they can make plans. They have more control and safety. They can stop writing whenever they need to. So if you give them a writing exercise to do at home, if they feel overwhelmed, they can just stop. You know, and we always promote the whole self-care. If you're doing something, you're freaking out, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna handle it? How are you gonna calm yourself down? They learn to trust their own intuition, and they only share what they want. I never force people to share what they've written. I encourage them, but I never force them. If they don't want to, that's fine. They also get to observe their situation from a third-party perspective. And I'll sometimes ask them to write out what's happening from the perspective of another person. They can identify patterns and cycles, and if they keep a journal, I recommend that they always date them, so they can go back and see, oh yeah, every year in March I have a problem, you know, or able to identify things or triggers, that kind of thing. And it helps them be more objective about their situation. So why I do this kind of work? Bottom line is it changes clients. They start to engage differently if they have to participate. You know, there are clients who don't say much, there are clients who just talk, but when they actually have to pick up a pen and do some writing and then discuss what comes out, they engage in a different way. And it helps them to connect the dots. I'm not the ones figuring out for them why this thing is hurting them and they're reacting this way today. You know, they'll write about it and they'll go, oh my gosh, I didn't know this, you know. They understand themselves better and they're more able to make decisions. So, many of you already do this, I'm pretty sure. How many of you have used CBT thought records? How many have asked your clients to do pros and cons lists? How many have asked your clients to write letters? Okay, so you all do this. This isn't new. I'm just hoping to give you a few more ideas. Something that you can go home with and start tomorrow. This is just a quick overview. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but these are the different ways that you can use writing. And I often have clients who say, well, I want to keep a journal, but I don't know what to write. So these are a few suggestions. They can make lists. So the list can be just random. They can be brainstorming. They can be mind maps, clustering. Are people familiar with clustering? No. Okay, clustering is you start with someone comes in and they're frustrated. So you have them write frustration in the middle of the page, and then you say, okay, when you think of frustrated, what's another word that comes to mind? Anybody? Frustrated? Angry? What else? Just irritated? Unsure. The next thought, and the next thought, and the next thought. You put it on paper, and usually it'll combine both sides of the issue if they go at it. All right, so that's clustering. Letter writing we're familiar with. Dialogue is where the gestalt connects. So instead of having two chairs, the way to really tap at the unconscious is to use your non-dominant hand and your dominant hand. But that kind of freaks people out sometimes. So you can start with having them use two different colors of ink. So, and they can dialogue with other people, with people who are deceased. They can dialogue with themselves, with feelings, with their headaches, with their frustration, with whatever. And so they start by asking the question, and then in the other color, or with their other hand, they let whatever they're dialoguing with answer. And the thing I always tell people, because they say, well, I don't know what they're going to say, this is where they kind of let the whole idea of automatic writing come up. Just write whatever comes up. And the thing about doing a dialogue is often it'll bring up either their fears about the situation or their hopes. What do they really want? If they're having a problem with someone and they do this dialogue exercise, it'll come out at some point that, they really wish it was different. How can we work together? How can we solve this? I really don't hate you, that kind of thing. Automatic writing is when you take a thought or a sentence and that's your beginning point. So, I am strong, and then you just go from there, just write everything you think about. Sometimes you can set a timer for 5 minutes and just write. Other times you can just stop when you feel it's complete. Storytelling, answering questions, using prompts. If you go on Pinterest and you write journal writing prompts, you will find thousands. So there is tons of information online, and I find Pinterest to be a great, great resource. And I often send clients there for their homework.
What is it?
Pinterest? Pinterest is like a social, Pinterest. Yeah, it's a social media thing where people post images or websites that they are interested in. So there's all kinds of different topics. You can look home decorating, whatever, but if you look at journaling or writing or collages or whatever, you'll find tons of examples. Okay. All right. What you need, basic tools. So line paper, white paper, pens, markers, coloring pencils, cardstock, scissors, etc. When it comes to magazines, because I'll touch on collages a little bit later, if I have a 50-minute session with a client, if I give them magazines to flip through, there isn't much time left. So I have taken entire weekends just to cut out words out of magazines. So I have a box full of already cut out words and phrases and whatever. So, they come in, they're feeling a certain way, I'll just say, go through the box, pick out what calls to you right now. So either they'll pick out stuff that they're feeling or how they want to feel or that kind of stuff. So it's helpful to have that on hand as a quick, thing to go to. Okay. So these are just some of the exercises that I use on a regular basis. And they often help people sort through their feelings. So this one, I've used with people who are having conflict either with someone else or they're going through grief or a situation that brings up mixed emotions. It helps them sort what they feel, see what they have or don't have control over, and decide what they want to do next. So in this exercise, it can either be in a letter format or it can just be like a journal entry. So they start with anger. So what is it about this situation that makes you angry? So I'm so angry that you broke up with me with a sticky note. I'm furious because you didn't even have the decency to face me. I'm enraged that, and you go on and write everything you're angry about until you feel that the anger is pretty much all out there. Then you move to sadness. I'm really sad that you're gone. I'm sad because I had plans. I thought we were going to spend our life together, whatever. Then you go into the I'm afraid. So what are you afraid of in this situation? I'm afraid I'm going to be alone the rest of my life. Or I'm afraid my family won't understand why you left me. I'm afraid to face my friends. I'm afraid to whatever you're afraid of. The next one is I'm sorry or I regret. And I always tell people it's not about having done something wrong, the sorry part here. Especially when it's a conflict or a relationship, because I don't want them to feel that they have a blame or that they need to take responsibility for someone else's action. The sorry is more, I'm really sorry things turned out this way. I regret that we didn't spend more time together. Those sorts of things. Then they go into the deeper part. What I would have wanted was for you to talk to me. What I wanted was to feel appreciated. What I wanted was whatever. And then the next one is now so what are they going to do about all this with all these feelings? Now I'm going to be more careful when I choose a mate. I'm going to make sure they have no sticky notes. Now I'm going to take better care of myself. Now I'm going to avoid you, whatever it is that they're going to do. So that brings them into an action. So that's that exercise. The next one is 3 statements, is what I call it. And I'll often use this after many of the different exercises that I use, because I find it helps people find where to go next or how they feel about it. It helps them sort them at a different level. So once they've written that letter or that whatever other exercise, I have them reread it, and then I get them to complete these statements. So the first one is, I didn't know that. So an example would be, if we go back to the letter, I didn't know that you could be so cruel. I realized that, I don't know what I realized. Maybe you couldn't face me. And what I need is, and it gets people to sort of think, well, what do I need right now? And to get into the habit of asking themselves, what do I need? I need to be with friends. I need to, let go of this. I need to move on. I need to have a good cry. So I use this a lot after any kind of exercise. All right, we good so far? Okay. This is what I call the lies and the truth. So this is an exercise that I'll often do verbally. And I'll do it when, I'm having a conversation with someone and they start to use a lot of negative self-talk. I'm a piece of shit, nobody loves me, things aren't going to change, I'm doing this for nothing. So I say, okay, so let's write down, what are the lies that you believe? So we start with that. And the thing about lies is that people recognize that they're lying to themselves most of the time. Because somehow if I say, excuse my language, if I say I'm a piece of shit, on some level, there's still a part of me that believes that I'm okay. So by doing this,
Letter to Fear.
They recognize
I recognize and respect that you are part of this family, and so I will never exclude you from our activities. But still, your suggestions will never be followed. You are allowed to have a seat, and you're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. You're not allowed to touch the road maps. You're not allowed to suggest detours. You're not allowed to fiddle with the temperature. Dude, you're not even allowed to touch the radio. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to drive. And this was written by Elizabeth Gilbert and was in her book, Big Magic.
I believe in the lie that I need to be perfect, but the truth is no one is perfect. I need to be kinder with myself and accept that I make mistakes. That's how I learn. So what I'll often do too is there'll often be a theme. You know, if it's a particular session, usually the lies are kind of all related. So often the lies are related, you know. I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not perfect. So when we look at the truths, you end up with a really nice list of affirmations, which is great because then they can take that and create something else that they can take home, put on their wall, or write in their journal, or reflect on. So that's what I do with that one. I'll come back to this. Where is it? Ah, there it is. This is an example of a letter to an emotion. And this came from Elizabeth Gilbert. You can use music, and they overlap, so you can have the birds and the wind and the whatever together. So you kind of feel like you're in the woods. So that's one of them. And the other one is called Insight Timer, and if you don't know this app, it's amazing. It has thousands and thousands of guided meditations. So when people say, yeah, you know, my doctor told me to meditate, or somebody told me to meditate, but I don't know what to do. So I'll say, well, you know, sitting down and emptying my mind, I can't do it, you know? So I love guided meditation because you don't have to make yourself do anything, you just have to listen. And there's meditations for falling asleep, there's meditations for anxiety, there's a lovely 5-minute meditation on self-compassion, there's meditations to do before you go into a meeting, there's all kinds of stuff. So it's a great little app, and it helps people sleep as well. All right. I won't make you do this because I'm not set up. You're familiar with the labyrinth? Yeah. So in your handouts, there's actually explanations at the top. But one of the things you can do for grounding, and you can do this at the beginning of an appointment, you can put some soft, quiet music on. You give the client this labyrinth, and you get them to breathe, and you get them to use their finger slowly. Focus on their breath and follow the path. And to just spend their time focusing on just moving through the path and breathing. And to remind them that they can't get lost. There's only one path in there, so you can't take the wrong way. You know, you get to the middle, you come back. Because I had a client saying, oh, I started to do that and then I panicked because I thought, what if I can't get out? So it's like, no, you can always get out. And you know, you can always lift your finger off too. So that's one exercise to get them to be in the present moment. Okay, I have put other things in your handouts. I didn't put them all here. And I'll show you some of them. How am I doing for time? Okay, great. All right, so the period of my life and the importance of heroes, and some of them, I think they're in your handouts, I believe. so I won't go into them too much. This one here is called the barometer, and it's in your handout, and you can print it off and use it with clients. This I find is really useful if you have clients who have depression or who are having particular issues, and it's a way for them to track how they're doing on a weekly basis. So you have them fill it out every week. So they rate from 0 to 10. How are they physically feeling? So especially if you have someone who's got chronic pain or something like that. So are you feeling really bad? Do you have some discomfort, or are you feeling great? Personal care I've lumped together, so that includes your eating habits, your routine, your hygiene, and exercise. So are you successful at that? Are you, you made some effort, or are you rocking it, Sleep. How's your sleep? Again, the scale. And then I put down intensity of emotions. So are they feeling numb? Do they feel some emotions, or are their emotions so strong that they can't concentrate? And then I get them to note which were the most frequent emotions that they felt this week. Then we go into level of stress. What was their level of stress like? And then what was their social interaction? Are they isolating? Are they spending time with people? So by filling it out every week, it kind of creates this little accountability thing too. It's like, oh, I have to show this, so I guess I better spend time with friends. Or maybe I should have a shower. And so they can always give that to their doctor as well, especially if they're considering going on medication or want to see how their depression is. This will give them a clue week by week if they're improving or not. And then they can write at the end, this week I'm conscious that I didn't take time to eat properly or whatever. All right, this is the lovely self-care wheel that Olga Phoenix designed. She works with people who are who have vicarious trauma from working with people with trauma. So she's developed this wheel which includes different suggestions of what you can do for self-care and recommends that you have activities in all of these realms. And you can go to her website, which is just olgaphoenix.com, and you can find this, and I've included a blank one. So there is a blank one in your handout, so you can fill it out yourself. And we're almost at the end. The dating client, she was dating this guy and ended up being a disaster, but she said it's okay, it's good, and she says, I'm still willing to go out there. And I said, oh, that reminds me of, those adult stickers you can get that are like, I did the dishes, I got out of bed, I brushed my teeth. And she said, yeah. And I looked at her and I said, do you want to draw your own sticker? And she's like, yeah, this is, she's very keen. So she really loves those markers. So she created this thing, and she was quite proud of it. I'm just going to put it up on her wall. So that's, we're getting to the end. We're getting to questions, but before questions, I just want to show you this drawing. So this woman has all these knives sticking in her head, and it says at the bottom, I feel something. And the artist is Amy Hewell, and she has done a series of paintings that have to do with PTSD and trauma. And some of them are really, really powerful. A little girl on the bed with monsters underneath. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll kind of trick my clients. That's not really true. I'll just say, I just found these great paintings. Would you like to look at them? And I'll show them, and they'll say, oh, cool. And then they'll stop at one and they say, that's exactly how I feel, So the power of using pictures, drawings, art can really help bring stuff out of your clients and start the discussion. Because to me, it's all about the story. Tell me a story about that. What happened? What happened to that little girl? What happened to, and often taking themselves out and seeing themselves as vulnerable. What happened to that vulnerable little girl? You know? So, that's pretty much the info. Are there any questions? Yes?
I'm interested in the slide that you showed us with the lies and the truth. And I wondered, because it is a variation on some cognitive behavioral work, but you go from lie to truth.
Yeah.
In the process, do you help the person to reframe? How do they get to the next step?
If they can't, she's asking about the lies and truth, how do they get to the truth? We discuss it. So they have no problems coming up with the lies.
Right.
So if they have a hard time with the truth, I'll just say, okay, is it always the case? You know, kind of the same as the CBT type of questions. You know, is there a different way to look at this? Or, you know, what would your friend say about that? So you can often get it, but often I'll just look at them and say, yeah, what's the truth? And then they'll look at me and they'll say, I'm not that bad. You know? So, yeah. So
depending on the client, you would provide more prompts or less prompts.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes?
Have you used writing exercises with aging populations, seniors with dementia, Alzheimer's, end of life, that kind of thing? I could have done it. Have you used writing exercises with the aging population, seniors, Alzheimer's, dementia, end of life?
No. I mean, I have a client who's older, and I've done some exercises with her. She finds it very difficult, but I think that's part of the way that she is, though. The thing is, this isn't going to work for everybody. You know, there are clients who, the clients who have a natural tendency to keep a journal are going to be really drawn to doing this. The clients who have a hard time talking are going to be really drawn to this. Because everybody wants to be able to express what they're feeling. And if they can't talk, then you have a client who sits there in silence for 45 minutes. So if you can find a way for them to get it out, it's usually a big relief. But for some clients, it's like, no, I don't want to write. No, get away from me, you know. And that's fine. It's all about respecting where they're at. And to me, it's always about how can I find a different way to explain this? How can I find a different way for them to look at their situation? So the more creative possibilities I can find, the more I have in my toolkit to share with them. So, but there was a documentary on CBC Radio about using narrative therapy with seniors with dementia at one point. It was very, very good. Any other questions? Yes?
I just have a quick comment. I really liked your journaling exercises options, those were great. It prompted me to thinking about something I'm doing with my daughter right now. She's 7, and just trying to open up the lines of communication, which are sometimes difficult with her. And she has anxiety, so I find that we've got like this little communication book that she actually does like little comic book doodles, and we do little bubbles and stuff about them, and kind of go back and forth that way. So it's neat. I'm appreciating all these different options because I think they're so useful in so many different ways.
Yeah, I find it's great. I love it. Yeah, thank you. Yes? Oh, you can pass it back.
Do you use this method with groups as well?
I used to. I haven't done a group in a long time. And it was the format of the living journal process, sort of. And the manual that I have at the back is more focused to groups. So with a group, what you want to do is make sure that everyone is a good match together. What I would do with the group, it was more pre-planned. So you have a theme. Today we're looking at stress, or today we're looking at whatever, relationships, and the way that it would work is I would explain what we would be doing. I would explain the writing exercise to everybody, and then I would do a guided meditation to bring everyone into the writing. So usually something to, you know, they go down the path and they end up seeing the person they're going to dialogue with or whatever. And those things are amazing because interesting people pop up. And then I give them a prompt to all go on their own and do some writing. And after about half an hour, 40 minutes, they come back in a group and they do some sharing. And the sharing is not about what they wrote. They can share what they wrote if they like, but the sharing is about how did you feel when you were doing this? Did you learn something about yourself? Where did it take you? That kind of thing. And it's always optional. I never force people. I encourage people to share, but I don't force them. And the thing about a group is you just need one person to say, oh, I'm going to share. You know, and then it kind of gets the ball rolling. So we have 1 minute. Any other things?
I was just going to make a comment to the lady who was asking about would these activities would be good for those with dementia. On the flip side of it, it could be very good for the care partner of the person with dementia because they're going through so much. And this might be a way to help them express themselves and have a form of self-care for themselves.
And not to put another plug in for the coloring book, but the coloring book is a coloring book / journal, and the focus is on self-care. So there is some things to color and there's some things to think about in terms of your own personal self-care. So I've kind of framed it for helpers, and I've actually given it to some, that was the French one and the English one, I've given it to some of my clients, those who are looking after their parents, those who, you know, have a lot of kids and a lot of stuff to do and people who rely on them. And they're so excited. It's like, oh, I keep your book in my purse, and I was coloring at the office, and so it helps them to actually slow down and take some time for themselves. So we're done.
That was really, really good, and it really reminds me of, you know, kind of going back to, remember being a child and the freedom that we had when we colored and we expressed ourselves through art. And it's sometimes as we get older, we forget about that. So this was a great reminder of those tools. And I want to thank you, Dima, for a wonderful presentation.